The 2001 DreamWorks smash hit SHREK will be a familiar friend to anyone born in the last 30 years. It's a really smart movie that remixes classical fairy tale ideas with pop culture and sassy irreverence, and it is the poster child of having jokes in kids' movies aimed at adults.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
SHREK and its many sequels later spawned a litany of what young people call memes. Remembering that meme is a term coined by Richard Dawkins to denote any idea that can be passed from mind to mind with minor alteration, the mental equivalent of a gene. But that's enough about biology. What is it about SHREK that spawned this colossal popularity? And what on earth is going on with the confusing structure in the second half? Let's break the spell and find out. This is Equipment for Living with SHREK. Alright, get your bearings. SHREK is about a big green ogre called SHREK. In a flurry of visual storytelling, we are introduced to SHREK in his preferred mode. A little bit gross and entirely left alone. When villagers come to his swamp seeking a bounty on fairy tale creatures, he scares them away. We get the sense, though, that perhaps SHREK is not entirely comfortable being prejudged for what he is. The action shifts to introduce Donkey, a mouthy equid who is being rounded up in the whimsical pogrom. Donkey manages to escape and bumps into SHREK, who scares away Donkey's pursuers. Clock Donkey's first reaction to SHREK here, it's important. He's scared, but only for a moment. Immediately, an odd couple relationship is established. SHREK is ornery and wants to be left alone. Donkey is imperturbable and wears his heart on his sleeve. And this clash of personalities is what kickstarts SHREK's spiritual journey.
I don't have any friends, and I'm not going out there by myself. Hey, wait a minute, I got a great idea. I'll stick with you.
This moment hits at minute 8, 10% in, and serves as both call to adventure and the statement of the theme. This movie will highlight aspects of friendship that are easy to overlook. Donkey invites himself over to SHREK's place, and SHREK reluctantly agrees to shelter him. Note that this is a similar setup that we saw in 2002's Ice Age, a weak motormouth seeking refuge in a misunderstood powerhouse. But the similarities don't persist past Act 1, so we can leave it there. At minute 13, a cornucopia of unwelcome fairy tale cast-offs invades SHREK's swamp. SHREK is deeply perturbed by this development, and this is what kickstarts his physical journey. Note the sequence here, it's like bracketing. Donkey opened this spiritual bracket first back in minute 8. Here, in minutes 13 to 16, the physical bracket opens. Because in response to the unwanted invasion of SHREK's property, SHREK promises to go and seek the bureaucrat who initiated the purge and deal with him. Reluctantly accepting Donkey as a guide, SHREK sets off. And at exactly minute 16, or 4 frames before that, we cut to our villain. For TOS reasons, I probably shouldn't try to pronounce his name with my accent, so let's call him Lord F. We meet him in a brilliant exploration of the film's fairy tale subversions, torturing the gingerbread man. This transitions to a hasty but elegant setup for the rest of the film. Lord F commands a kingdom, but can't be a king unless he marries a princess. So he picks a princess to marry and decides to throw a tournament to decide which of his lackeys will go and fetch her for him. Notice that Lord F has no friends, only lackeys. In minute 20, SHREK and Donkey reach Duloc, the castle that constitutes Lord F's kingdom. And in minute 21, 25.3% in, there is a classic crossing of the threshold into Act 2. SHREK and Donkey pass through a turnstile from the place they knew into the intimidating unknown. In a very classical move, Act 2 will cover the journey to acquire something new. This is straight out of Campbell, which is to say it's straight out of the last 10 millennia of human storytelling. Act 2 starts out with an introduction to Duloc. SHREK stumbles into the tournament to see who will rescue Princess Fiona, and ends up being coerced into doing it himself. Distrustful of others, he hammers out the details of the deal with Lord F, and then sets out to rescue Fiona from the dragon. As our heroes hit the road, we get some more hints of the theme. 27 minutes, or 32.5% in, SHREK and Donkey have their famous exchange about onions. SHREK is telling us that there's more to him than his frightening exterior, and hinting that he'd like it if people could see past the unpleasant visage. Donkey reassures SHREK that he sees the value in the ogre, even though he was kind of afraid at first. So Donkey will constitute the B character. The odd couple goes on a scenic montage. It's astonishing to me how much more beautiful the CGI is in this film compared to Ice Age a year later. Anyway, at the tower where Fiona is being held captive, SHREK helps Donkey overcome one of his own weaknesses: cowardice. SHREK pushes Donkey to peel away his own layers and find some courage within. Together, they distract the dragon and make off with the princess. The princess has a head full of notions about true love and the nature of her saviour, but true to the film's spirit, SHREK subverts these. He whisks her out of the tower, wearing a helmet that obscures his ogroid features. Once they're all safe, she demands that Shrek remove his helmet and kiss her. When he removes his helmet, Fiona sees he's an ogre and reacts with disgust. She reacts like everyone else does, by judging his exterior. Shrek is clearly disappointed, and Donkey is present because this is the midpoint and he is the B character.
Alright, I hope you heard that. She called me a noble steed.
This happens 42 minutes or 50.6% in. The stakes are raised as Shrek now has to deal with a feisty princess, and a timer is set as he vows to get her back to Lord F as soon as feasible. And then things get worse. But it's really a dappling of light and dark moments. Fiona is an unwilling captive and bosses around her captors. Donkey tries to dig through Shrek's layers, causing Shrek to reveal that he is hurt by the prejudice of others. Unbeknownst to Shrek, Fiona overhears this. Robin Hood comes along to try and steal Fiona from Shrek, but in a scene that immediately dates Shrek to that period when every movie was referencing the Matrix, Fiona handily bests them. And as a counterpoint to the earlier montage, we get a second montage, showing Shrek and Fiona growing closer. So this is where things get tricky structurally. There are major turning points coming up at around 80% and 90%, exactly as you'd expect if you've seen my overview video, but they seem shifted by one. At 80%, there seems to be a low point, and at 90%, we seem to be breaking into Act 3. On closer inspection, I found there is a kind of low point around 70%, but it doesn't fix the problem of the other beats still feeling off. Let me just go through them all now. At minute 57, 68.7% in, the travellers reach the end of their journey. To delay their separation, Fiona makes up the excuse that Donkey seems ill and may die. That's as close as you're going to get to the whiff of death you're expecting around 70% in. It's the prospect that Fiona and Shrek's budding romance will die more than anything, certainly more than Donkey dying. Normally this is the worst point in a protagonist's journey, but in Shrek, things actually continue getting worse even past this point. Shrek misses his chance to confess his feelings to Fiona, and it all culminates with a Shakespearean misunderstanding. Donkey discovers Fiona's secret that she turns into an ogre by night. Shrek overhears them talking about it and assumes the hideous beast they're talking about is him, not her. This breaks his heart, and he is cruel to Fiona the next day, leading her to believe that he finds her ugly. They inadvertently convince each other that they hate each other. At minute 66, 79.5% in, Shrek discharges his duty and hands Fiona over to Lord F. Act 2 began with Shrek receiving this quest, and here it ends with the delivery of the bounty. This closes the bracket on the physical journey, as Lord F agrees to evict all the fairy tale miscreants from Shrek's swamp. But this still doesn't seem quite right as a break into Act 3, and it continues feeling off from there. The first half of Act 3, from 80 to 90% in, is usually a fairly tense and often high-stakes stretch. In Shrek, it's quiet and melancholy. It shows us how the characters live without each other, in misery. This stretch mimics the tender introspection we usually get from 70 to 80%, and I can't tell if that's intentional choice or not. In other words, after watching dozens of movies and being certain of the structure of everything from Battleship Potemkin to Persona to 2001 to the latest Spider-Man, Shrek has me confused. What does it mean that this stretch is so somber? Is this supposed to be the start of Act 3? The presence of that minor bump at 68% suggests that the filmmakers, or at least the studio suits, were careful to stick to structure at least in principle, but how does this fit into the overall schema? It's even more confusing because Donkey is the character to break Shrek out of his funk by delivering key information. This is usually accomplished by the B character at the break into Act 3. Here, it takes the place of the reversal 73 minutes or 88% in. Donkey explains that one of the functions of friends is that they forgive each other, and he convinces Shrek that he and Fiona really do love each other. We then get the kind of triumphant castle storming that usually begins Act 3, and conclude with Shrek declaring his love for Fiona, Lord F being eaten by the dragon, Shrek turning Fiona into an ogress permanently, and me being quite confused. I want to emphasize that this is a complete story. By fulfilling the function of a loyal friend, Donkey has acted as a conduit between Shrek and the world around him, a bridge across his harsh exterior, bringing his value out into the world. That's one of the important functions of friends. They bring out the best in us and showcase that to the world. Put another way, simply having friends indicates to strangers that you must have something valuable to give. Otherwise, why would you have friends rather than lackeys like Lord F? This dovetails with Fiona's story too, which I've saved until now. In a lot of ways, Fiona has the opposite problem to Shrek. Rather than being a valuable person trapped in a hideous exterior, she feels pressure to live up to the expectations people put on her because of her beauty. She is prejudged just like Shrek is, but for the opposite reason. At the same time, there are private aspects to her character that are less flattering. She's not supposed to know Kung Fu, for example. She's not supposed to burp. And most of all, she's not supposed to turn into a beast by night. But it turns out that these are exactly the aspects that connect her with her true love, Shrek. Fiona's character is really interesting and cleverly conceived and sends a wonderful message to girls watching her. It might seem like you're trapped in a prison of who you're supposed to be, and that there are so many things about you that don't live up to that image, but it's your idiosyncrasies that make you interesting and endear you to others. Like Shrek, Fiona needs someone to see past her outer layers to the true person within. And Donkey arguably fulfills that function for her too. Donkey is everyone's B character. So it's appropriate that as Shrek and Fiona ride off into the sunset, Donkey should get the final spotlight. And at last, we close the other bracket, that of Shrek's spiritual journey, which is also now complete. So, there you have it. Despite its irreverence, Shrek clearly has a lot of respect for fairy tales. Why else would the movie be so careful to craft its universal human truths in line with its structure? And while I think that message is strong, I'm not convinced I've understood the structure, let alone approve of it. This movie is so short that it doesn't feel misshapen by its unorthodox structure, but the bit of the movie that actually feels like the third act is shorter than Lord F, mere minutes long. If anyone else out there watches this movie, please let me know what you think is going on, but I still think Shrek is a great movie. The message that we're all a bit rough around the edges and none of us lives up to expectations, but that friends can help us put our best foot forward, that is some great life advice, and that's what makes Shrek such great equipment for living. Thanks for watching this breakdown. If you found it insightful, please leave a thumbs up. If my ramblings have stoked an insight in you, I'd love to read it in the comments. And if you'd like to see more movie breakdowns, click subscribe and ring the bell icon to make sure you don't miss any future videos. November is going to be Star Wars prequel trilogy month. I'll break down each movie in the trilogy, and then, possibly, try to break down the trilogy as a single continuous story. So stay tuned for that. It's like poetry, they rhyme. Bye for now.